I am making a deck profile for a deck I randomly thought of when I saw the two new predaplant pendulum monsters being scaled at 0 and 8. Because when I saw them, I immediately thought, why can't I play Zark in this deck? So this is a dracoslayer variant of the predaplant deck. That literally the dracoslayer is only in this deck to summon Zark, and I haven't actually played any games with it, but or any games against other people, but I have tested around this deck and it actually does seem to be pretty decent. But I also have a pure variant of Predaplant on along the way, which should probably uploaded should be later on this week. To start off with the monsters, I play 3 copies of the new Predaplant Buffalicula. I'm probably butchering that name. But I really like this card just because of having the pendulum ability of during the main phase you can fusion summon one dark fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as fusion material. You can only use that effect of this card once per turn. So I like this card just because while it's in the pendulum scale, it's essentially a polymerization once per turn. As well as having the effect of if this card is sent to the graveyard or added to your extra deck for a fusion material, then you can add one face up dark pendulum monster from your extra deck to your hand, other than another copy of itself. And you only use that effect once per turn. So I just like this card because while it's in the pendulum scale, it's a once per turn polymerization, and it recycles things when it goes to the extra deck. Then I play 3 copies of the new predaplant Triantis. Triantis has the pendulum effect of while it's in the pendulum zone, if you have a fusion monster, or you. Well, while it's in the pendulum zone, it has a pendulum effect. If you fusion summon a dark monster, you can also use cards in your pendulum zones. So if you have this and the other, if you have both of these in your pendulum scales, you can activate this card's effect, use both of these as material, and then you can return Triantis to your hand, and then Triantis can. Let's see. But if this card is essentially the graveyard or face up extra deck because it uses fusion material, then for each monster you control, you place a predator counter on add that many monsters your opponent controls. And the only thing that predator counters do is if a monster is level 2 or higher, it becomes level 1. But with another monster in this deck, while it's on the field, all monsters with predator counters are treated as dark. Then I play 3 copies of Predaplant Biblisp. Biblisp has the effect of if this card's into the graveyard, you can add a Predaplant monster from your deck to your hand, except for another copy of itself. And then if your opponent has a monster with a predator counter, it can summon itself back from the graveyard, but it gets banished when it leaves the field. You can only use each effect of Predaplant Biblisp once per turn. And then I also play 1 copy of Predaplant Cericiant. Cericiant has the effect of if you're attacked directly while its card's in your hand, you can special summon it. And then any monster it battles is destroyed, even if it's destroyed as well. But then if it's sent to the graveyard by battle or by being used as fusion material, then you can search your deck for a Predap card. You can only use each effect of it once per turn. Then I play 2 copies of Predaplant Chlamydia Sundew. Chlamydia Sundew has the effect of while it's face up on the field, all monsters with predator counters are treated as dark monsters. And then once per turn, you can activate its effect to fuse with monsters from your hand or either side of the field. But you can only use your opponent's monsters if they have predator counters. Then I play the 1 copy of Predaplant Darlingtonia Cobra. Cobra has the effect if it's summoned by the effect of a Predaplant monster that you can search your deck for a fusion or polymerization card. But you can only use that effect once per duel. Then I play 3 copies of Predaplant Ophir Scorpio. A Fear Scorpio has the effect of when it's summoned, you can discard a monster, and if you do, special a predaplant monster from your deck. Then I play 2 copies of Predaplant Spidonia. Spidonia has the effect of when it's summoned, you can target one monster your opponent controls and place a predator counter on it. And then Spidonia battles a monster that's level 4 or lower, then it's allowed to summon a Predaplant monster from your deck. You can only use each effect of Spidonia once per turn. Then, for the last of the Predaplant cards, I play the 1 copy of Predaplant Helium Phormicus. Helium Phormicus is a free summon if your opponent has a monster with a predator counter. And then, if this card in its owner's possession is destroyed by an opponent's card, so if you have it in play and you have it attack something that's stronger than it and it dies, as an example, or if your opponent attacks it while it's in defense and does, or if it just gets destroyed by an opponent's spell or trap, being examples, then you can target 1 dark dragon or dark plant monster in your graveyard except for another copy of itself and special summon it. And you'll use each effect of Predaplant Helium Phormicus once per turn. But that is it for the Predaplant monsters in the deck. For the monsters, I play 1 copy of Vector Pendulum. This card's only effect is while it's in the pendulum scale, it negates your opponent's pendulum effects. Mainly being their effects in their pendulum scales. Then I play 3 copies of Luster Pendulum, the dracoslayer. This card's pendulum effect is once per turn, if you have a card in the other pendulum zone, you can destroy that card and then add a card with the same name from your deck to your hand. And its monster effect is just, it can't be used as or you cannot special summon Fusion, Synchro, or Xyz monsters by using this card's material unless it's a dracoslayer. Then I play the 1 copy of Lector Pendulum, the Draco Overlord. This card has the effect of it negates the effects of face-up pendulum monsters while your opponent controls them. So if you have a pendulum scale with Lector Pendulum and Vector Pendulum, and there will shut down an opponent's pendulum deck. But then it has the monster effect of at the start of the battle phase, if this card battles a pendulum monster, you can destroy both this card and that monster. So it's decent to have if you're fighting pendulum decks. Otherwise, it's only in here for a 1/0 spell that I feel like is safe to put at 3 because hardly anyone plays dracoslayer anymore. Then I play 3 copies of Master Pendulum, the dracoslayer. This card's only in here at 3 because it's the typical monster you end up summoning off of the dracoslayer extra deck monsters. But it's just a normal monster that has the effect of once while it's in the pendulum zone, you can target 1 card in your pendulum zone and destroy it. That effect is never used in this deck because typically you want this to be summoned and not in the pendulum zone. The only time you ever place this card in your pendulum zone is if you already have this Luster Pendulum, either Luster or Vector. Because then you'll scale this, or scale these 2, activate its effect, destroy this so you can search for another copy of it, and then you would scale the Vector Pendulum, and then be able to pendulum summon level 4. But that is it for the monsters. Since this is still an experimental variant of the deck, I haven't worked in hand traps yet. Honestly, I probably won't until it's the actual pure Predaplant variant. Moving on for spells, I play the 1 copy of Draco Faceoff. This card lets you reveal a Dracoslayer and a Draco Overlord. So you would either reveal Master Pendulum and Vector Pendulum, or Luster Pendulum and Lector Pendulum. But essentially what this does is you reveal a Drake Overlord and a Dracoslayer. Your opponent chooses one of them at random. The one they choose either gets summoned to the monster zone or put in the pendulum zone, and then the other will go to the face-up extra deck. So this card essentially is just an extender with the Dracoslayers. Then I play the 1 copy of Predapruning. Predator pruning is a monster reborn by targeting a predaplant that's in the graveyard. Or I guess it'd be more appropriate to say it's a premature burial for predaplants, and that just targets them instead of being able to just pay 800 and bring back any monster. And then I play one copy of Predaplast. Predaplast has the effect of you can reveal any number of Predaplants in your hand to then be able to place predator counters on monsters your opponent controls for each Predaplant revealed. And then if a Predaplant monster be destroyed by battle, or I believe you can also say it from card effects. Let's see. Yeah, if a Predaplant monster be destroyed by battle, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead. Now, if it had the effect of if a Predaplant would be destroyed by battle or card effect, I probably play 3 of those just for the grave effect. But then I play the one copy of Miracle Synchro Fusion. I only play the one copy because this deck can search for fusion cards like there's no tomorrow. And this card will only be used because it lets you fusion summon a fusion monster that requires a synchro monster as material by banishing materials from your hand or from your field or graveyard. Which I will go over it later, but this card is actually one of the things required for a combo of this deck is the whole purpose I put together. Then I play the one copy of Greater Polymerization. It just lets you fusion summon a monster from your extra deck by using monsters from your hand or field as material, but you can only activate if it requires three monsters. But if a monster is fusion summoned with this, it gains the effects of it can't be destroyed by card effects, and if it attacks a defense position monster, it inflicts piercing battle damage. So because of that, I've actually thought about playing one copy of Guardian Chimera in this deck just for Greater Polymerization. Just because then it can't be destroyed by card effects, and it inflicts piercing, and you already have to use 3 monsters anyway. But if I had room in the extra deck, then I would definitely play at least one copy of Guardian Chimera. Then I play one copy of Ultra Polymerization. This lets you pay 2,000 life points to fusion summon using monsters from your field. But as well as being that your opponent can't activate, neither player can activate cards or effects in response to its activation. And then you can banish this card from your graveyard to then summon back the monsters that were used to fusion summon. Then I play the one copy of Predaponics. This is a once per turn monster reborn for level 4 lower Predaplants by negating their effects. But during the standby phase, you have to pay 800 life points or it will destroy itself. But I perfectly think that's fine because you can just bring back something like Drowning Tonia Cobra if you just need like one body. Or you can bring back Cerisiant and then fuse with it and then get a search for a Predator card. Then to finish off the trio spells, I play 3 copies of Polymerization since this is a fusion deck. And 3 copies of Predator Practice. Predator Practice lets you special summon a Predaplant monster from your hand, and then you can add a Predator card from your deck to your hand other than another Predator Practice. But for the rest of the turn after you resolve this effect, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck except for fusion monsters. Which in the pure variant of this deck, that restriction is not an issue at all. But in this one, if you're going to do dracoslayer things, then you can't activate Predator Practice. Or if you do, then you can't go through the full dracoslayer things. But that is it for the main deck. I probably won't keep this deck together for very long and just end up reverting it to a pure Predaplant variant, which will be uploaded sometime this week. But then I play the one copy of Magister Paladin, the Ascending Dracoslayer. This card is the effect of when it succeeds summoned, you can activate its effect, so that during the end phase, you can add 1 pendulum monster from your deck to your hand. And then once per turn, you can detach the material, especially on a Dracoslayer from your extra deck face up. But then that monster can't be used for Xyz material. Then I play the one copy of Magister Paladin, Magister Paladin, Ignister Prominence, the Blasting Dracoslayer. This card is the effect of it can target 1 card in the Pendulum Zone on the field to then destroy it and then shuffle 1 card on the field back into the owner's deck. as well as having the effect to once per turn special summon a dracoslayer from the main deck, but it cannot be used as synchro material. Then I play the 1 copy of Dinosaur Power, the Mighty Dracoslayer. This card has the effect of cards in your pendulum zones cannot be destroyed by opponent's card effects, and then it also has the effect of once per turn you can special summon a Dracoslayer from your graveyard, but it cannot be used as fusion material. Typically, the way I'll summon these is I'll summon Magister Paladin, detach a material so you have Dracoslayer in the graveyard, summon another thing, or another Dracoslayer. Then I'll use it with another monster to make Dinosaur Power, because Dinosaur Power is a contact fusion where you just tribute the monsters required for it, which is a Dracoslayer Pendulum and another Pendulum monster. And then I'll use its ability to bring back the Dracoslayer that I detached, and then tune for this. This will then summon a Dracoslayer from the deck, and then I can fuse all 4 of them, as long as I don't summon Luster Pendulum, into one copy of Supreme King Zark. Then for the rest of the predaplant cards, I play 2 copies of predaplant Melodies. I'm still working on actually being able to pronounce his name correctly. But I'm actually... Whoops. Bit of camera issue there. But I am actually very surprised that this card was a common, when after reading it and realizing how great it is for predaplants, that I was surprised it wasn't secret rare. Or secret or ultra rare. But it's just a generic predaplant fusion monster, really just requiring 2 predaplants, as well as being level 5. So you can also play instant fusion in this deck, which the pure variant of predaplant does. But it has the effect of, if this card is fusion summoned, you can add 1 predaplant monster or 1 predaplant spell or trap from your deck to your hand, deck or graveyard. I am butchering. I apologize. You can add 1 predaplant or 1 predaplant spell or trap from your graveyard, deck, or face-up extract to your hand. And then you can target 1 monster your opponent controls with a predator counter, or 1 monster you control, tribute it, and if you do, special summon 1 predaplant monster from your deck. You only use each effect of predaplant Melodies once per turn. Then I play 1 copy of Predaplant Chimeraphlasia. Chimeraphlasia, again, is another generic Predaplant monster by just acquiring 2 Predaplants. But Chimeraphlasia has the effect of, once per turn, you can banish 1 monster your opponent controls that has an equal or lower level than it, and it is level 7. And if it battles an opponent's monster, then you can activate its effect, so that opponent's monster loses 1,000 attack, and then it gains 1,000 attack. So I like this card just because when Chaos Max Dragon was running around, this was how I would out it, just because I would attack it with this. Chaos Max Dragon will lose 1,000 attack points, putting it at 3,000, and the Chimeraphlasia would gain 1,000, putting it at 35. But Chimeraphlasia's actual great effect comes from when it's in the graveyard, which is during the next standby phase after this card was sent to the graveyard, you can add 1 polymerization or fusion spell from your deck to your hand. Which I love that effect, because against Infernoid, when they summon Infernoid Tierra, or whatever their fusion name is, what I've done in the past with this deck is I'll send 3 of these to the graveyard, and then during my next standby phase, I get 3 searches. Which, being able to search for 3 fusion cards is actually kind of scary with this deck. But then I play 1 copy of Predaplant Starving Venomy Dragon, 1 copy of Predaplant Dracostapelia, 1 copy of Predaplant Triphiovertum. Dracostapelia has the effect of once per turn, as a quick effect, you can target 1 monster your opponent controls and give it a predator counter. It then has the continuous effect of, while it's on the field, your opponent's activated monster effects that have predator counters are negated. And then Predaplant Trophy Overwhelm has the effect of it gains the attack of attack equal to the original attack points of all monsters on the field with predator counters. And then you can only use each of its following effects once per turn, which are if your opponent special summons a monster from the extra deck, you can negate the summon and then destroy it. And if your opponent controls a monster with a predator counter, you can special summon it from your graveyard. But you can only use its first effect to negate the summon of a monster from the extra deck if it was fusion summoned. And then starting Venomy Dragon has the effect of each time a card is sent from has the pendulum effect of every time a card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you place one Venomy counter on it, and then for I'm apologizing, I'm butchering this. But you place one Venomy counter on it for every card sent to the graveyard. So if your opponent activates card destruction and they send 5 cards to the graveyard as cards in your pendulum scale, it gains 5 Venomy counters. And then all monsters on the field except for Dark Dragon monsters will then lose 200 attack points for each Venomy counter on it. And then once per turn, you can reduce the battle damage you take to 0. But the main reason I like this card is just because of its monster effect. You can target one monster your opponent controls until the end phase. This card's name becomes that monster's original name and replace this effect with that monster's original effect. And then that monster loses 500 attack and defense. Its effects are negated, and then inflict 500 damage to your opponent. So I like this card because if you're in time, as much as I hate the current time rules, then you can summon this card, activate its effect, burn your opponent for 500. But then it also has you can only use each of its effects once per turn, and then if this card in the monster zone is destroyed, you can then place it in your pendulum scale. But again, I just mainly like this card because of it being able to take an opponent's monster's name, effect, and then burn for 500. Then I play 2 copies of Starving Venom Fusion Dragon and 1 copy of Greedy Venom Fusion Dragon. Starving Venom Fusion Dragon has the effect of if it's fusion summoned, it gains the attack points of 1 special summon monster on the field. Or gains attack equal to the attack points of a special summon monster on the field. And then once per turn, you can target 1 level 5 or higher monster. I believe it has to be level 5 or higher. Yeah, you can target 1 level 5 or higher monster your opponent controls. Until the end of the turn, it gains that monster's name and effects. And then if this fusion summon card is destroyed, it destroys all other special summon monsters on the field. And then Greedy Venom Fusion Dragon has the effect of it can once per turn it can target 1 monster your opponent controls, negates effects, and then reduces attack to 0. And then if it is destroyed by battle or card effect, then it will dark hole the field. And then you can banish a monster from your graveyard whose original level is 8 or higher to then special summon itself from the graveyard. You can only use each of its effects once per turn. So the reason I like this card is also because it's a great super poly target, which at this point is in the side deck. But it requires a predaplant monster and then a dark monster whose original level is 8 or higher. So I just like this card because you can just summon a predaplant and go, oh no, gets locked to a super polymerization, then fuse this with something like Destiny Hero Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer. But there is a better super poly target than this, and that being the 1 copy of Starving Venom Predapower Fusion Dragon. This card requires a dark monster and then a fusion monster, or a dark fusion monster and a fusion monster. It requires 2 fusions, one of which has to be dark. But then it has the effect of its always treated as a Predaplant card. And I actually haven't read this card. I just know it's very good and it's a negation. But this card's effect is once per turn when a card or effect is activated, you contribute 1 monster on the field, or I am butchering this, I apologize. But you can tribute one monster on either side of the field with a predator counter to negate that card's activation. If you do, destroy it. And then this fusion summon card you control is sent to the graveyard by an opponent's card. You can target one dark monster in your graveyard and special summon it. And you can only use each effect as Starving Venom, Predapower, Fusion Dragon once per turn. But even if you don't get its negation effect, it's still a decent super poly target. Just because you've used two of your opponent's fusion monsters away, cough, cough, Despia, cough. But you've used two of their monsters, summon this, and then if it dies, you go, oh no, guess I'll get a dark monster from my graveyard back. And then to finish off the extra deck, since this is a dracoslayer variant, I do play 2 copies of Supreme King Zark. I haven't played 2 copies of Zark in a deck since before Lynx. But that's just because if you open the right hand with this deck, then you can summon all of the dracoslayer monsters, summon a Zark, and then use Miracle Synchro Fusion, banishing those same monsters from the graveyard to summon a second Zark. But Zark has the effect of it can only be fusion summoned, and then when it is fusion summoned, it has the effect it can destroy all cards in your opponent's field. It cannot be targeted or destroyed by card effects. And then if it destroys an opponent's monster by battle, then you can special summon a Supreme King Dragon from your hand, deck, graveyard, or extra deck. And then if it is destroyed, then you can place it in your Pendulum Zone, with its Pendulum effect being Fusion, Synchro, and Xyz monsters your opponent controls cannot activate their effects. And then once per turn, if your opponent adds a card or cards from their deck to their hand, then you can destroy that card or cards. But I just like Zark just because it's been one of my favorite boss monsters ever since the end of Arc 5. And I've just been obsessed with trying to make it decent again ever since Lynx introduced and ruined my Draco Zark deck. But that is it for my Predaplant Dracoslayer deck profile. If you have any ideas what I can do to improve the deck, any decks you'd like to see me make, or any decks I'd like to see face each other, feel free to comment those below. Thanks for watching.